Thank you, Ron. You really get it. That's exactly what I did. I've been dithering and dithering as to what scene to choose. I chose two, and I imagine most of you are familiar with Jane Austen's version of Pride and Prejudice, as I continue to call it. And you know about the ball, the famous, infamous ball in which Elizabeth Bennet's entire family conspired to humiliate her. And what I'm going to read now is the scene that follows that at Netherfield after that atrocious ball. Miss Bingley knocked on Fitz's door a short time after the last guests had left, none other than the appalling Bennet family, the mother already angling to move into Netherfield, along with the rest of her nauseating brood upon the impending marriage of her eldest daughter. "Mr. Darcy," Caroline's voice was high and strained, no flirting now. "Mr. Darcy, please come to the door. I'm sorry to disturb you, but it's vitally important." Fitz, fortunately still wearing his shirt and pantaloons, opened the door a crack. Poor Caroline looked haggard. It had been a long night, and her face paint had smeared with the heat. She had not removed so much as her headdress, the once jaunty feather drooping in disappointment. "What is it, Miss Bingley? Are you quite well?" "No, Mr. Darcy, I am not. I am near to collapsing with fatigue, and now Charles is saying the most shocking things and behaving in so eccentric a manner that Louisa and I are afraid." "Afraid? Had you not better send for the physician?" "Nothing like that," she said. "He's swearing that he will marry that girl with dreadful family, Miss Bennet. He says he intends to call on her first thing when he returns from his business in town." That brought Fitz out into the corridor. "After the appalling exhibition we were treated to tonight, he can't be serious. I assure you I would not have disturbed you in your room if I thought it was just a passing mood. He won't listen to me or Louisa, his own sisters, but he listens to you. Please talk some sense into him." "I can try," Fitz said. He has been flaunting a rather touching independence recently." "We should go up to town with him," Caroline said, running beside him down the corridor, his long strides making her breathless to keep up. Yes, let me just hear it for myself. I wonder he didn't come to me first." Caroline gasped. "He said he had. He said you knew all about it. Have you been keeping secrets, Mr. Darcy?" "I don't reveal the substance of our every intimate conversation, Miss Bingley, however you might wish it. Charles is suffering from the common ailment of green youth, love sickness, an unsuitable romantic passion. I have let him talk and not attempted to dispute. It seemed the more prudent course. He did mention something of this before the ball, but I took it as just another of his hyperbolic enthusiasms. If one good thing could be said to have come from this night's debacle, it's that it should put an end to Charles's absurd matrimonial notions. I'd have staked Pemberley on my certainty that we'd heard the last of it." "Lucky for you, you're not a gambler," Caroline said, with more asperity than Fitz had ever heard from her. "But we may all reap the rewards of such careless dealing." She eyed Fitz meaningfully. Fitz restrained his first impulse to snap at her, mainly remarking, "We shall see." "Declare my intentions, then blave the blistering wrath of Fitz himself." Charles's loud, slurred voice was audible well before they reached the rooms occupied by Louisa and her husband. "Ah, there you are, Darcy," Hurst said. "If you would be so kind as to take this bedlamite away with you, perhaps Mrs. Hurst and I and the rest of this house can enjoy some peace and quiet." "Gladly," Fitz said. "Come on, Charles. Come and tell me what has you so agitated." "No, Fitz," Charles said. "I will not come with you. That's what I've been saying. I'm done with that now. Going to marry Miss Bennet. You're welcome to stay on while the banns are being read, but once we're married, we shall want to live by ourselves. I'm sure you understand." "It's merely infatuation," Fitz said to the room at large. "Am not," Charles said. "Sober as a judge. As sober as your hanging judge of an uncle at the bloody assizes." Though he was my great-uncle, Monmouth's rebellion was nevertheless slightly before his time. Fitz couldn't resist murmuring, "Come, let's get you to bed." Not with you, Darcy, Charles said. Won't be getting into my bunghole tonight, old man. Language, Charles, Fitz said, not in front of your sisters. Oh, bugger my sisters, Charles said. He giggled. They'd let you, you know. We all let you, except me, not anymore. Charles, Louisa said, you are being a very naughty boy. If your poor papa were still alive, he'd whip you. He'd whip you two sluts all the way to Bridewell and back is what he'd do, Charles said. Throwing yourself at Fitz like that, with your husband under the same roof. He turned to Hurst. Why don't you put your foot down with Louisa? Show her you're a man. I say, Hurst said, you have one hell of a nerve barging into my room and telling me how to conduct my marriage. Ought to call you out if you wasn't my brother-in-law. But it's late, and we both had a lot to drink. Forget it all in the morning. Just hope you don't take offense, Darcy. It was the longest speech Fitz had ever heard from him. Not at all, Fitz said through clenched jaws. And as for you, Caroline, Charles continued, Hurst's mumbling not having registered in his preoccupied mind, I can promise you Fitz won't come up to scratch. Has his eye on my beautiful, sweet Jane's beautiful, not-so-sweet Lizzie. Don't mean sour. What's the course at the end of the meal? Ain't sweet, you know. Not sugar. Salty? Savory, Hurst suggested, mellowing at the appeal to his Epicurean expertise. Savory, that's it. Fitz likes the salty, savory Lizzie, likes to poke her. With words, I mean, not with his poker. Not yet. Louise and Caroline exchanged a significant look. Now you see what comes of admiring fine eyes, Caroline said. Not really your style, I'd have thought, Hurst said. Spending most of his days asleep, he was unfortunately wide awake once the clock struck midnight. Skinny little thing, sharp tongue. None of my affair, I admit, Darcy, but fact is you'd be better off with good old Caroline here. At least she understands about you and Charlie boy. Can't imagine Miss Eliza Bennet putting up with that, no matter how savory she may be. Ha! These provincial gentry are the worst sticklers. No knowledge of the fashionable world. Do you know I saw her deliberately choose a plain dish over a ragout? Fitz felt a headache developing despite having forced himself to abstain. The desire to drink himself into insensibility had come over him. Early enough in the evening that he had been able to defend himself against it, although the horrors that followed had been of such severity and had escalated so steeply, it had been a struggle toward the end. I never seriously admired her, he apologized with poor grace. It was merely a jest that went too far. Was not, Charles said. He thinks of her, you know, when he Rogers me. The collective and ominous silence that greeted this pronouncement was interrupted again by Hurst, picking up happily on yet another topic on which he felt qualified to express an opinion. Bad form, Darcy, old fellow. Never think of anyone else when I'm with Louisa. Wouldn't say so if I did, of course. Never think of anything at all. True, Louisa said. Your mind is as void of substance as your cods. Hurst's stuttering expostulations were overborne by Fitz's roar. Charles, I expected at least this much consideration, that what was told you in confidence would not be repeated to the world at large. I am tempted to follow your father's example and give the whipping of your life. Too late, Charles said. The days of my lowering my breeches and bending over for you are over. I'm over bending over. No more indulging for me. Indulging? Not quite right. Endowing? Hoping the picture would lead to the word, he made a vulgar gesture of fist and bent elbow, smiling in triumph when he achieved success. I have it. Endorsing. There was the briefest of pauses until another random thought struck. I say, now that your friend George Wickham is in the neighborhood again, you can go back to endorsing him. He giggled again. The sound made Fitz's teeth hurt. I'm warning you, Charles, Fitz said. He passed a hand over his face in a futile hope that when he opened his eyes, his vision would have cleared, that this was all hallucination brought on by anxiety in the late hour. One more word from you and what, Charles said. Only say Wickham's a charming, fine-looking fellow. Thought you might have been gilding the faded memory a bit, but now I've seen him, all I can say is, see what you mean. And in that red coat, damn near irresistible, I should think. Better than that poor little sod Denny you've been making do with. Oh, don't look so surprised. Think I don't notice things. But I see what's in front of my face as well as any man. And I see that your Wickham has charmed all the ladies, even Lizzie Bennet, especially Lizzie Bennet. Now there's a picture, eh? The savory Lizzie bending over for the beautiful George Wickham. Fitz acted by instinct, striking Charles with open palm, unable, despite what would be mortal insult from any other man, to bring himself to hurt the one who had been his Eromenos, his beloved. Charles's body, loose-limbed and flexible with drink and desire, slumped to the floor. This time, a cacophony of imprecations put a premature end to another shocked silence. "Just leave me alone," Charles said when the storm had broken over his head and dissipated from lack of energy to sustain it. He sat up shakily from his position on the carpet beside Hurst's stocking feet. "All of you, just leave me alone. I am of age, I am the master of an independent fortune, and as soon as I deal with this stupid business in town, I am going to call on the woman I love with all my heart and offer her my hand in marriage, and anyone who doesn't like it can bloody well move out of my house." When Fitz bent down to offer his assistance, Charles pushed him away, his clammy hands slithering against Fitz's like one of those protective sheaths used in brothels. "Don't touch me," Charles said, "can get up without your help. In fact, can get it up a hell of a lot better without you." "Oh," Caroline put her hands over her ears. "I don't know what's come over you, Charles." "Fitz," Charles said, legs sprawled, leaning back on his elbows. "He comes all over me, thinking of his Lizzie and her beautiful eyes. Or perhaps of his lost love, George Wickham, of the enormous prick and the even greater insolence. But I'll be the one coming soon enough in bed with my wife." In the end, Fitz had to hoist Charles to his feet and haul him out into the corridor. Charles didn't fight, but he didn't help either. He sagged, limp and unresisting, in Fitz's embrace, muttering revolting endearments to his Jane under his breath, radiating spirit fumes enough to intoxicate the entire household, and collapsed in a stupor on the bed when Fitz dumped him down. His man was standing by, and Fitz left him to his distasteful work. Despite Charles's further amusing intimations, Fitz did not enjoy fucking corpses. This is what my book looks like, if anybody's interested in reading the entire set of scenes between scenes that I've strung together here.